All right, here we go with the fourth and final lecture in the evaluation series. And this is kind of going to come full circle to where we started weeks ago with our discussion of theories of change and change models. And so we're going to reintroduce those ideas, kind of do a redo on them, and then connect them to this kind of understanding of science and methodologies and the philosophy of science. And then talk about how we can apply them kind of pulling out different components to really understand policy change. If you remember, we began this kind of discussion around public policy as change is this kind of one thing in the policy sciences that we just don't know how it occurs, right? So we have a number of different theories. And so this lecture is going to get into that and hopefully bring full circle our understanding of public policy and public policy change and the way that we can go from having a policy to not having a policy or not getting a policy at all. Or from not having a policy to having a policy. So let's go back to the actors in the policy process. This is the cast, right? All the world's a stage, as Shakespeare said. So here we go with the kind of cast. We have government officials, organized interests, epistemic communities, and the mass public and the media. And each one of these cast members has a different role to play, right? Efficacy coalition framework. Come back in your mind to that approach that we talked about a while ago, right? You have this kind of policy subsystem where actors are kind of contesting the ideas. You have coalition that share different deep core or policy core beliefs. And you have change that arises from learning, shocks, or negotiated agreements. And so a mini case study would be around the climate policy. So you have a pro-mitigation coalition, NGOs, clean tech, youth. And you have an economic growth coalition, right? The fossil industries, labor groups, growth first, think tanks. And so then you have our Paris climate agreement targets that emerge from shifting coalition balance, plus these external shocks like extreme weather. Incrementalism versus punctuated equilibrium. We talked about how typically policy flows in this kind of incremental fashion, and then sometimes there's these shocks, right? And so that's what it is. The tempo is slow, continuous, and incrementalism. And then PET is this kind of long, slow, continuous incrementalism, and then sudden jumps in policy. The driver of incrementalism is bounded rationality, right? And the driver of PET is kind of agenda disruption events. And so you can kind of see a couple of examples here around incrementalism, the kind of gradual increase in minimum wage over time, and punctuated equilibrium, the 2008 economic crisis that led to the Dodd-Frank bill. Both theories are kind of fit in with this post-positivistic lens, recognizing that we have institutional friction and cognitive limits on our understanding. Kingdon's three models with a quick application around telehealth. So problem stream, policy stream, politics stream. Policy windows open when these streams come together and policy entrepreneurs can push solutions through. So go back in your mind to the pandemic as this kind of focusing event, this problem. There is mature telehealth technology ready to go in that policy stream, right? There are options. And then bipartisan waivers that allow this kind of broad expansion of telehealth. And this kind of changes the landscape around how we interact with doctors, right? And that all would not have happened were it not for this pandemic, right? Imagine the benefits that we have from just being able to zoom into your doctor's office rather than having to go when you have a cold or whatever. And a number of different things. Imagine the folks out in really rural areas that have really long drives or difficulty getting to actual medical facilities. And now this kind of expansion of telehealth was able to come online because of these three streams coming together. So let's go back to the policy science paradigms that we just left off with in one of the previous slide decks for this section on evaluation. So the ACF approach, the Advocacy Coalition Framework, fits in the post-positivistic sense, right? A belief-driven learning, falsifiable sub-hypotheses. Incrementalism is around constructivist, right? A modeling framed by subjective satisficing. PET, punctuated equilibrium, is this kind of critical or this positive hybrid, looking at power monopolies that have a dominance over particular policies and keeping them incremental, and then attention cycles, right, that lead to boom, change in public policy at that punctuation. And then Kingdon is this symbolic interaction kind of feeling here, where you have the meaning and coupling of ideas and politics. And so shaping the framework implies epistemological commitments, and that shapes the data that you're going to seek to actually see if these things are accomplishing the goals that you intend them to accomplish. No one-size theory, right? No one-size-fits-all. So a synthesis is a great way to approach applying these different theories to really get an understanding of what led to change and what is change here, right? So the ACF can help you understand coalitions. The punctuated equilibrium can help you think about shocks. Incrementalism can look at small changes. And Kingdon helps us spot these policy windows that open up. And so the blended approach, this is how I approach a lot of my research around policy outcomes, brings in this kind of methodological pluralism. So let's wrap it all up. Actor interaction translate values and evidence into policy action. And understanding these competing theories help us diagnose stagnation and then also think about policy change. One thing that I want you to really get out of this course is this new understanding of, hey, why don't we have a policy for something that you really care about? And maybe now you can kind of see how difficult it is. One, there's so many different problems out there that everybody cares about, right? And so trying to figure out the one that actually fits on the agenda that we can actually deal with is a struggle, right? That kind of bottleneck approach. And then you see that giving the coalitions, giving the correct timing, giving the power of policy monopolies that have over current issues, the policy winners, and breaking up those monopolies, it's all really difficult. And so if you have this sense of understanding of how the system works, I think you can go out there and really advocate and strategize to achieve the change that you may want to achieve for a policy or an issue that is really concerning to you. So go out there and do it. And I've had a lot of fun teaching you in this class. I've got one more set for you, one more slide deck coming up to kind of wrap things up. So take care. See you then.